Chapter 4 of A Different Cowboy, Part 2 by Joe Jones. "She'll make it," says the doctor. "Yeah, well, you better hope so," Johnny replies as he walks over to Tessa, still laying on the counter of the general store. He kneels down beside her, grabs her hand and begins to rub it. "I love you, darling," he whispers in her ear. The doctor hears this and is disgusted. He mumbles something and begins to walk to the door. Sam turns around and says, "What did you just smart off under your breath?" Johnny turns around and stands to his feet. "You got something to say?" he asks. The doctor looks at Johnny and says, "Yeah, I said, how can you love her? How can you say you love her? Are you blind? She's colored and you are a white man. Men in this town died during the war to keep this type of stuff from happening. Yeah, well, you lost." The doctor snarls his nose and says, "You disgust me. You should be ashamed of yourself." Johnny walks to the doctor face to face and says, "You're going to be ashamed to walk down these streets with my boot in your ass, 'cause it's going to be so far up there you can't ever pull it out. You ain't going nowhere till she wakes up. So shut your mouth and sit your ass down." The doctor looks over at Sam. "You're going to let this man talk to me that way?" "You damn right I am. You heard what he said. Sit your ass down." The doctor drops his head and finds a seat. Hours pass and Tessa finally begins to move. Johnny, sitting in a chair beside her, hops to his feet. She begins to open her eyes to see Johnny standing there smiling. She looks around confused. "Johnny, what happened?" "You slipped into a coma, honey, after that scorpion got you." "Oh, yeah." Her eyes get big and she shouts, "Johnny, our baby!" "It's okay, dear. The doctor here says you and the baby are going to be just fine. He gave you some medicine that saved your life." She sits up and looks over to the doctor. "Thank you, doctor. You saved me." The doctor shakes his head and stands up. "Yeah, well, not my choice. If I had it my way, I'd have let you die. I'll probably never be able to practice medicine in this town again once word gets out that I saved a colored woman." "You got that right," Johnny says to him. He looks over at Sam holding Tessa's hand and says, "Sam, take care of him." Sam stands to his feet and begins to walk across the dusty hardwood floor towards the doctor. The doctor stands to his feet and backs up against the window. "I'm leaving," says the doctor. "I agree." "Y'all need to get out of my town. Go north. Go east. Go anywhere but here." Sam grins behind his big mustache and says, "Thanks for the directions. I've got some for you too. Go to hell." Sam then punches the doctor so hard that he falls into the window behind him with such force that the glass breaks, allowing the doctor to fall out into the street. As this happens, a speeding wagon is flying down the road in front of the general store and runs the doc over, killing him instantly. Sam turns to Tessa and Johnny. "What happened?" asks Tessa as she hears a crowd outside the store gasp. "He took my advice," Sam replies with a grin. They stay in Abilene a few more days until they know for sure that Tessa is well enough to travel. Then it was back on the journey to Texas. As they ride, Johnny looks over at Tessa and says, "I know I don't tell you nearly enough, but I couldn't live one day without your love. The thought of losing you and our unborn child was more than I could bear. If you would have died that day, I was going to crawl up next to you in that grave. They would have had to bury us together." She smiles at Johnny and says, "Johnny, don't do that. I would want you to go on and live your life, even if it doesn't involve me." "Woman, are you crazy? This cowboy can't move without a beating heart in my body. If you die, I bury my heart with you. You are my heart. You are every breath I take. You're the fight in my spirit and the uncontrolling desire to live one more day, just so I can share it with you. Move on if something happens to you. I can't promise you that. He faces the front of the wagon for a moment after saying this, then turns back to Tessa. Tears fill her eyes and then begin to stream down her face. I won't let nothing happen to you again, or our child. As God is my witness, I swear I'll die for you to keep you safe from all harm. Tessa hears this and begins to sob harder and leans into Johnny. Thank you, Johnny. I've never known a love like this. God truly brought us together. And Tessa, she lifts her head off of his shoulder and looks up at him. I love you a lot, and you know that, but I'm ready for a change. What do you mean, Johnny? Her heart begins to race as she has no idea what this means. Johnny takes a deep breath. I'll explain it tonight. What? You just gonna say that and leave me wondering all day what that's supposed to mean? You don't do that to someone, Johnny, she says as she wipes the tears away, fearing that he's wanting to end their relationship. I've got nothing to do all day but stare at sand and cactuses and think of what that means. Just tell me, Johnny. He smiles. Tonight, Tess. Tonight. She goes on the rest of the day, thinking in her mind what a change could mean. They had already experienced so much change as it was with the journey that they had been on. Was he tired of it? Did he want another woman? Did he want to move somewhere else? These questions shadowed her thoughts all day until night finally came. They had stopped just an hour prior to the sunset, where Johnny and Tessa had stopped on the way to Arizona before, at the pond where Johnny was almost attacked by a rattlesnake, and Tessa shot it, so they could finally bathe. The pond was a nice end to a hot day. The sun had been scorching since morning. As Tessa bathed, Johnny and Sam set up camp. They had started a fire and were cooking supper. When Tessa came to Johnny, she sat down beside him and kissed him on the cheek. What are y'all making? I caught some fish on the other side of the pond earlier. They're small, but at least it's something. She smiles. I'm okay with that, Johnny. After they finish eating, they all sit down by the campfire watching the wood burn. Sam lays back on a log and begins to doze off. Johnny looks at Tessa and says, Come on. They get up and Johnny wakes Sam up and says, We're going for a little walk. We'll be back before too long, but don't wait up on us. Didn't plan on it anyway, he says as he pulls his cowboy hat down over his face. Where are we going, Johnny? Tessa asks as Johnny leads her into the darkness of the night away from the campfire. Do you trust me? Of course I do, Johnny. They walk down an embankment by the pond. We haven't made love in a while, Tess. Yes, I noticed, Johnny. Johnny leans in, and they begin to softly kiss each other. She puts her hands on his shoulders and runs them down his unbuttoned shirt and back to his shoulders again. They begin to explore each other's bodies with their hands, feeling and squeezing one another. He lays her down on the ground and his cowboy hat falls off as they kiss. He pulls her breast out from her dress and begins to lightly caress them and suck on them as she leans her head back and takes a deep breath in pleasure, looking up at the stars in the sky. Oh, yes, Johnny, she whispers in his ear. She allows no part of her body to be forbidden to Johnny as she willingly submits herself to him. They touch and kiss and roll each other around on the ground. Then an old familiar feeling comes over Tessa's body, one that she had been missing for a while. As the two join each other again, it reminds her of why there's a child on the way now. As Johnny gently lays against her, he loves her like he never has before. So much passion fills her heart and mind as pleasure overwhelms her body. Her legs begin to tremble, and her fingernails dig into Johnny's back, leaving the trace of the language of love on his skin. They try new positions she's never experienced before. Her body begs for more of Johnny, as the dry desert all around them begs for water. She digs her hands into the dirt, trying to contain her voice from screaming too loud not to alert Sam, who is sleeping not too far away. A cool breeze blows across their bodies in the dark, just what they need as their sweat glistens in the summer moonlight. Johnny pulls into Tessa tight as he finishes, and the lovemaking comes to an end. They lay beside each other without saying a word for an hour's time. Then Johnny sits up and turns to her. "Tessa, I told you earlier I had something to tell you." "Yes, Johnny?" "And as I said before, I love you more than life itself. I would give my own life for you, and that's a promise. Well, I'd like you to give me the honor of me calling you my wife. I want to marry you, Tessa." Tessa sits up shocked. "Johnny, they won't allow you to marry me. It's against the law." "Then I'll go somewhere where it ain't. I'll search every church until a preacher man says that he will, but I'm not giving up. I want you to be my wife. We have a child on the way, and we're going to be a family. And ain't no law going to stand in my way and tell me that I can't spend the rest of my life with you." Once again, tears filled Tessa's eyes. "So, Tess, my question to you is this. Will you marry me?" She smiles. Yes, Johnny, I will." This concludes Chapter 4 of A Different Cowboy, Part 2 by Joe Jones. Please let me know what you thought about this chapter in the comments below. And as always, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Until next time.